Hi everybody, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this video. This is a bit of a special video for me. Today I'm not going to cover a typical travel destination, but a very special place and a very special process, and that is the process of the Umrah. So in this video I'm going to take you with me on my Umrah pilgrimage to Makkah, and I'm going to explain along the way the various steps that you have to go through when you go on Umrah. The Umrah is a small pilgrimage in Islam, and while it's not as complicated as the Hajj, it still is a bit of a process, and it's useful to prepare in advance and just get a bit of an understanding of the various steps that are involved when you plan to go on Umrah. So in this video I'm going to take you through those steps and provide a few useful tips along the way. As a preface to this video, I want to say that I'm obviously not an Islamic scholar, so all the information that I'm going to share with you today in this video I have researched myself, and I have practiced it myself, and I've witnessed others use the same information process while on Umrah. But please do take it with a grain of salt, as different schools of Islam may have slightly different variations of this process. But let's get right to it. The Umrah consists of four essential practices: the Ihram, the Tawaf al-Umrah, the Sa'i, and lastly Halq or Taksir. And I'm going to explain all of these four steps in more detail. Let's start with Ihram. Ihram is about physical and mental purity. And you may have seen the Ihram clothing that especially men wear, the white garments that represent this physical purity. But before you get changed into the Ihram garments, you have to first take care of your personal hygiene by clipping your nails and removing the hair under your armpits and beneath the navel. You should then do ghusl, take a shower, or at the very minimum do a wudu. Depending on where you start your Umrah, you can now get into your Ihram garments. But most likely you will fly to Saudi Arabia, take the plane to Jeddah, and continue your journey from Jeddah to Makkah. If that's the case, when you have a long flight ahead of you, you may choose to put your Ihram garments on the plane. So what's the Ihram garment all about? The Ihram garment consists of two clean unstitched sheets of white cloth. They don't have hems, buttons or seams, and one of the white cloths is referred to as the izar. The other sheet that is draped over the upper body, like a shawl, is known as the rida. The left shoulder should be covered at all times, whereas the right shoulder has to be exposed during the tawaf. I'm going to explain more about that later. Don't cover your head or wear socks, undergarments, or any other clothing. In terms of shoes, wear sandals that don't cover the heels, ankles, and toes. Do you have to be worried about the unstitched sheets of white cloth to fall? Not really. There's a special technique that I might cover in another video of how you actually put those on. But if you fold them and roll them in the right way, they will not come off. Can you wear a belt with your Ihram? Some may use a string or belt with the intention to keep the possessions with them, but not really with the intention to secure their lower garment or izar. And you can buy those belts that typically come with a pocket large enough to carry your passport, cash, or other important possessions that you don't want to leave in your hotel. If there's other things that you want to carry, you can also bring a small backpack with you. Assuming you start your Umrah with a flight, there's a few things you can do before boarding the plane. It's sunnah to perform 2 rakahs of salah before entering into the state of Ihram. This can be performed after getting changed at the airport or in flight before crossing the miqat, providing there are prayer facilities on board. Observe the prayer with the intention of performing 2 rakahs nafil for Ihram. Since you're not yet in the spiritual state of Ihram, the prayer may be observed with the head covered. It is recommended to recite Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rakah and Surah Al-Ikhlas in the second, although other surahs may be read. Don't forget to make dua after the salah. As you come closer to Saudi Arabia and closer to Makkah, you're also getting closer to the miqat. The miqat is a place beyond wherefrom no one can proceed to Makkah to perform Hajj or Umrah without putting on the Ihram. Miqat translates to a stated place. It is the boundary where it becomes necessary for pilgrims to put on the Ihram clothing. There are 5 different miqats, depending on the direction from which you come to Mecca. The first is Dhul Hulifa. It's the miqat for people starting the Umrah or Hajj from Medina. It's located about 18 kilometers away from the Al-Nabawi Mosque in Medina and starts thus right after you leave Medina. It's 410 kilometers away from Makkah and is the most northern miqat. When you start your pilgrimage from Medina, you may consider taking the Haramain train. Note that, other than in a plane, you won't have any time to change into the ihram clothing in the train, as the miqat starts right after departure of the train. Check out my video on the Haramain journey for more info. But note, if you're going to Medina before Makkah, you don't need to enter into the state of ihram when you fly to Medina. You will do that when you leave Medina for Makkah.
Dear guest, we inform that we are passing across the miqat. You can now prepare your supplications.
Most travelers from the US, Europe, or Northern Africa will come via air and cross the miqat at Al Jufa, which is 182 kilometers or 113 miles northwest of Makkah. If you come from Middle Eastern countries east of Makkah, you cross the miqat at Karn al-Manazil, which is located 80 kilometers east of Makkah near the city of Taif. This is also the miqat for pilgrims coming from South Asia, East Asia, and the Pacifics. The fourth miqat is Dar Irq and is 90 kilometers northeast of Makkah. It is the miqat for people from Iraq, Iran, China, Russia, and other countries. And lastly, Yalamlam is 100 kilometers south of Makkah and is the miqat for people coming from Yemen and most sub-Saharan African countries. If you intend to perform an additional Umrah or you live in Makkah, you enter into ihram outside the boundary of the Haram before going back to Masjid al-Haram to perform Umrah. A great place to enter into ihram is Masjid Aisha, which is the nearest and most convenient location from Masjid al-Haram. Transportation to get there is available near the mosque. Make sure you put on your ihram attire before crossing the designated miqat. You will be likely traveling to Saudi Arabia by a plane, so it's useful to get changed into the ihram at the airport prior to departure or during a stopover if you have one. Check in first and get changed in the prayer room or bathroom. Alternatively, you can put on your ihram in flight, although keep in mind that airplane bathrooms are usually very limited in space and there may be quite a rush of people intending to do the same thing as you as the miqat approaches. If you decide to slip into the ihram attire on the plane, do so at least an hour before the miqat is crossed. That way you're safe, you have completed everything before the miqat is reached. By the way, women aren't required to conform to any specific dress codes. Their clothing should be normal, modest Islamic dress with a head covering of any color. Hands and faces must remain exposed, although socks may be worn. On many flights to Saudi Arabia, especially to Jeddah, the miqat is announced on the airplane. So once the announcement has been made, it's time to make the niyyah, the intention for Umrah. Ideally, you should delay making the intention until the last moment so you aren't restricted by any prohibitions for longer than need be. It's recommended that you make the intention verbally, as well as reiterating it eternally. The most common intention that is used is Labbaika Allahumma Umrata. Once you have set your niyyah, you must recite the talbiyah to validate your intention and enter into the state of ihram. You should recite the talbiyah at least once after making your intention for Umrah. Failure to do so will result in an invalid Umrah, so make sure you do that. The talbiyah is short and it's really beautiful. Listen to this.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
By now I've landed in Jeddah and the infrastructure in this modern airport is fantastic, so you won't have any problem finding a way around. Everything's described both in Arabic but also in English. Once you've collected your bags and you passed immigration, you can head to the exit and there you have different options that take you to Makkah. In many cases you may be on a guided tour, so you won't have to worry about this, but if you're traveling by yourself, you can either take a bus, you could take the train, the Haramain train for example. You could also take a taxi or an Uber. Uber is operating in Saudi Arabia and that is usually my preferred choice of travel. It's not too expensive and it's the most convenient way to take you directly from the exit of the airport to the Haram area of Makkah. Depending on traffic, the car ride will take you about an hour. On the way to Makkah, you will enter the Haram area of Makkah. This is a sacred area that extends a number of miles around Masjid al-Haram in all directions. In this area, it is forbidden to cut or damage grass, trees, or any other type of vegetation, harm or kill wild animals, and that also includes scaring away pigeons, by the way. You're not allowed to carry any weapons, or fight or behave in any way that will violate the sanctity of this area. Upon entering the Makkah Haram area, you should continuously recite Talbiyah and send plenty of salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is recommended to recite the following dua upon entering the Haram.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
Eventually, you will make your way to Makkah, and you will already see the Haram area that is physically marked by the super gigantic and large clock tower that can be spotted from far away. You may first make your way to your hotel to drop off your luggage. If you decide to take a shower, make sure you don't use any items that are prohibited in the state of Ihram, for example, no scented soap or shampoo.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
Let me say a few words about the choice of hotel. If you are part of a guided tour, you don't have to worry about it. But if you make your own arrangements, there's a few choices that you have. Generally, the closer the hotel is to the Masjid al-Haram, the more expensive it is. There are several categories from very simple quarters to high-end 5-star hotels in Makkah. The latter are usually the ones around the masjid. The hotels that are farther away often offer bus transport. Of course, there's also plenty of taxis around, but they tend to be a little bit more expensive, which can add up if you plan to go back and forth between the hotel and the Haram area, for example, to attend prayers. How much is it to the Haram area? Haram? How much? 20?
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
So now it's time to head to the Masjid al-Haram, and I usually bring a drawstring bag with me for my shoes. There are places where you can drop your shoes, also in the Masjid al-Haram, but the mosque is so large and there's so many people that there's always a risk that you forget the location where you put them, or there's just too many shoes around and you may not find them anymore. So it's useful to bring a bag with you where you can put them and you can carry your shoes while you perform your Umrah.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك.
So we're getting closer to the masjid, and every time I come here the foot traffic is slightly different because the masjid is still under construction. And so the foot traffic is directed in different ways. Sometimes you have the opportunity to enter the Masjid al-Haram via the Bab al-Salam, the Gate of Peace. The last time I was there, I wasn't able to. But in any case, entering the mosque, you should step in with your right foot and recite the following supplications. Now we're getting closer to the Kaaba and we're almost reaching the Mataf area. The mataf area is the open space where the tawaf will take place. After entering the mosque, keep your eyes lowered until you reach the mataf area. Upon seeing the Kaaba for the very first time, raise your hands and make dua, and make sure to recite salawat. Now it's time to recite the following 3 times. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. It is also sunnah to recite the following du'as. Take your time here. This is a beautiful moment and place to pray and to mentally get ready for the tawaf, which is our next step. My last Umrah happened during the night time, and I was lucky enough to experience rain in Makkah during my Umrah. Check this out. The tawaf is a process where you circle the Kaaba 7 times. It starts at the corner of the black stone, the Hajar al-Aswad. The corner of the Hajar al-Aswad is marked by the green lights that are fluorescent and are hanging on the wall of the masjid. You start to perform your 7 circuits from there. But before you do that, and if you are male, you have to uncover your right shoulder by passing the top sheet of your ihram under your right armpit, allowing the garment to hang over your left shoulder. Now it's time to make the niyyah, the intention to perform the tawaf. There's no specific recital for this, so you can use your own words, but here's an example of an intention that you can verbalize, or you can also say silently. Now in theory, this is the time where you go kiss and touch the Hajar al-Aswad, but quite frankly, that is almost impossible because there's just too many pilgrims trying to get there, and it's a bit of a bottleneck. But it's okay because you can also just salute the Hajar al-Aswad by raising your hands up to your earlobes, similar as you would do when you're starting Salah. Face the Hajar al-Aswad and say Bismillah wallahu Akbar. And now it's time to start the tawaf. Depending on how many people are with you in the mataf area, that can be a fairly easy task, but more likely than not, you will not be alone there. There are many other pilgrims with you, and so you have to just pay attention to where you're walking, so you're not stepping on any feet, nor avoid traffic jams. You circle the Kaaba in an anti-clockwise direction. Make sure to not walk through the Hijr Ismail, which is the small circuit that is adjacent to the Kaaba. And for men, the first 3 circuits should be performed in Ramah, which is walking a little bit faster. But unfortunately, most of the times when I was there, there's too much congestion to really walk fast, and you just have to go with the flow. During your tawaf, you may recite prayers and supplications of your own choice. Duas are accepted during tawaf, so do make the most of the time that you are there. The Al-Yamani corner, which is the corner just before the corner of the Hajar al-Aswad, is a corner that is also quite special in the Kaaba, and at least once try to touch the wall of the corner with your right hand. Usually that corner is slightly easier to reach than the one of the Hajar al-Aswad. As you reach the Hajar al-Aswad again, you have completed your first circuit of the tawaf, and you will repeat that 6 more times for a total of 7. The tawaf should be completed in a continuous manner, and there shouldn't be any interruptions between the circuits, unless, of course, there's a call for prayer where the congregation stops for the prayer, and after the prayer you can resume your tawaf. Once you're done with your 7 circuits, you can cover your shoulder again with your ihram. Now it's time to perform 2 rakas of salah, and those should be performed preferably in a position where Maqam Ibrahim is between you and the Kaaba. Now that is also not always very easy, because there's of course many people there and you just may not find a spot where you can perform your prayer there. If that's the case, don't worry, the prayer can be performed anywhere in the masjid. It is sunnah to recite Surah Al-Kafirun in the first rakah and Surah Al-Ikhlas in the second. Once you've completed your salah and made dua, you can head to one of the Zamzam water fountains, which are available throughout the Tawaf area and really throughout the mosque. The entrance to the old well of Zamzam is no longer visible, it has been covered to allow for more room in the Tawaf area. Get the Zamzam water from the water fountains, there's plenty of cups available to do that, and more likely than not, there will be somebody to assist you. Make an intention, turn to face the Kaaba, and say Bismillah. Pause to take a breath 3 times and say Alhamdulillah after finishing. You may also choose to rub the water on your face and body. In the old days, it was possible to reach the Multazam area, which is the area between the Hajar al-Aswad and the door of the Kaaba. Nowadays, that is almost impossible. I would advise you not to even try due to the many crowds in that space. Don't worry, you can face the area and you can supplicate from a distance. So that completes the Tawaf. And we're ready to head to our next station, which is the Sa'i. It is sunnah to perform the Sa'i immediately after Tawaf, but if you need to, you can also take a quick break. You will do quite a bit of walking during the Sa'i. You will cover approximately 3 kilometers during the Sa'i, so make sure you have sufficient energy to complete the ride before starting. If you need water, there's also some water stations in the Sa'i area. You will start your Sa'i at the hill of Al-Safa, and luckily there's plenty of signage that will lead you the way. As you're approaching Safa, it is sunnah to recite the following. Recite these only once before Sa'i and not at the start of each lap. Once you reach the hill of Safa, face the direction of the Kaaba and raise your hands in supplication. Don't raise your hands up to your earlobes or gesture towards the Kaaba as you would have done during Tawaf. It is sunnah to recite the following dua. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, wa lillahil hamd. There's 2 more dua to recite. Read each dua a total of 3 times and make your own supplications in between each time. From Safa, it's time to now proceed to Marwa, the other hill that is part of the Sa'i. And fairly quickly between Safa and Marwa, you will encounter 2 sets of green fluorescent lights that are approximately 50 meters apart. They indicate the distance that Hajar ran in order to get to higher ground. These two markers are also known as the two green mileposts. Between the two lights, it is sunnah for men to run at a medium pace, while women should continue normally. During the sa'i, there is no fixed dua that has been prescribed to be read, so you may recite any prayers or supplications of your choice. Upon reaching the hill of Marwa, face the direction of the Kaaba, raise your hands in supplication, and repeat the same supplications you recited at Safa. You've just now completed one lap of sa'i, and returning back to Safa hill is considered a second lap. Go for another 6 laps for a total of 7 laps that finish at the hill of Marwa, which is the end of the sa'i. It's recommended to make a final dua here and also to perform 2 rakas of nafil salah, but since there's no dedicated space at the hill of Marwa, you can do your prayers anywhere in the masjid. After your prayers, you can leave the haram area, step out with your left foot and recite the following dua, as was the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ when leaving the mosque. Now you're almost done, and the last step of the Umrah is the halq or taksir. Halq is the process of getting your hair shaved, and taksir is a trimming of at least an inch of your hair. This is the final step which makes you leave the state of ihram and completes your Umrah. There's different places where you can do that. I recommend you use a licensed barber rather than an unlicensed street barber. There are a number of licensed barbershops and they're all open 24 hours a day. There are many barbershops in the Zamzam Towers, the Hilton Shopping Complex and Al Safwa Towers. Alright, that completes the full Umrah. You may ask how long the whole process takes. Well, that largely depends on how much time you take yourself and how much time you want to take. I would say the minimum time to complete the entire process upon entering the masjid is probably around 2 hours, but you can easily spend 4 or 5 hours as well. It depends a little bit on how long you want to take for each step, but it also depends on how many people will be with you during the time of your Umrah. For example, the more people you have in the Mataf area and also in the Sa'i area, the more slowly you will probably walk, the larger circles you will walk around the Mataf, and of course that all takes longer. And that's it. Congratulations on your Umrah. You are now free from the restrictions of Ihram and you can change into your normal clothing. By the way, you can perform several Umrahs during your journey to Makkah. And the way to do that is you have to enter into the state of Ihram again by leaving the Haram area. And as I mentioned earlier, the best place to do that is Masjid Aisha, which is the nearest and most convenient location from the mosque. The best way to get there is via taxi, and all taxi drivers will know the way, of course, and will be happy to take you there and to take you back to the Masjid al-Haram. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful. If you did, please give me a like and leave me a comment down below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to my channel, and I hope I see you next video. Have a good one. Salam and bye-bye.